Hello and welcome back to Chapter 2 of the Advanced Java course. This unit is again a review of Beginner's Java, and in this chapter we're just going to be going over what object-oriented programming is. So, object-oriented just refers to programming language in which programmers don't just define data and data structures, data types, but they also do functions and operations to that data. So, hence the data structure that becomes an object includes data and a function associated with it. So object-oriented programming is pretty helpful for programmers so they can create modules that they don't have to change when something new is added, right? So new objects can be added which can inherit features from existing objects, which is much easier to modify. So for example, if I had a conveyor belt, right, and I put some ingredients in and then I have a function associated with it, it'll come out and I want to say make a cat, right? It'll have all the properties of a cat, like legs, fur, everything. But I will have a different type of a different instance of a cat. So I'll have a cat with a different color, black, white, and I'll have a cat that has bigger eyes or something, right? I'm just creating what's called an instance of that, right? So a black cat is an instance of a cat class, or a car is like an instance of a vehicle, right? There's different types of vehicles, but a car has specific functions associated with it that are inherent in the vehicle, right? So there are four components in object-oriented programming, and they're called encapsulation, polymorphism, abstraction, and inheritance. Yeah, those are big terms, and you'll learn about what most of them really mean later on. But I'll just go over the first thing I said, which was encapsulation. And encapsulation just simply means hiding data, right? So in encapsulation, the variables of a class are just hidden from other classes, so they can be only accessed through methods. So that's how you can hide the data, right? So if you think of a car engine, right? If you open an engine, you will have no idea how it works, and you that's sort of expected. It's a common conventional car engines are pretty enigmatic, right? But they function as you want them to, right? They start the car, they get it moving, etc., etc. So here I've created a program, so just refer to it. So this code basically it's a triangle class. It just calculates the area of a triangle, right? The code uses the base and the height, and it calculates the area, right? So there's a method acting on the data, and that's an example of encapsulation, right? So let's just learn quickly about access modifiers, which set access levels for classes, variables, and methods and constructors, right? There are four main types of access modifiers. So there's public, protected, default, and private. Right here I have an example, public, right? But default is basically when you have something that's visible to the package, right? So private is when access is visible to the class, and public is visible to the world. So in this case, this class is visible to my entire program. Just remember, when you don't write anything like I have here, you're using the default access modifier. So let's talk about getters and setters. Getters and setters are just ordinary functions. The only thing that makes them getters and setters is the way they're used conventionally. So for example, the getter for name is called getName, right? And the setter is setName, right? All they do is they get the data and they set the data. They're a pretty basic object function. So the reason you use those is that you can make it possible to change an implementation of something. So if you have a cat and you want to set the color to whatever you want, you'll have a set color method associated with the cat. That's part of the object. So I have a class here that does sort of the same thing. So it's called dogs, right? So I have my constructors set up, and then I have a getter and a setter right here. So this will just give me the dog breed that I've set it to. Dog breed is its own data type, really. It's a string, Yeah, so you'll just know about the dog breed. And this will just set the dog breed to whatever you want. So the last thing we will just review is creating an object. So as I said, a class provides blueprints for objects really. Basically objects are created from classes. So to create a new object in Java, so you use the keyword new, right? And the first step to just declaring to creating an object is just declaring a variable with the variable name of the object. So this class will have an object dogs associated with it. So the class and the object are the same name. So next there's instantiation, which is where the new keyword is used. And finally there's initialization, where the new keyword is used. Basically, when you initialize, it's like declaring a variable, right? But in this case, you're declaring an object. So I have a class here that can show you that. So I have a class cat. I've declared and everything, and I will just instantiate it. So here's an example: cat my cat equals new cat, and we'll have the parameters here for the string being the name, right? And so this is just how you instantiate an object. So that's just an example of how you can create an object. So if we compile and run the program, really, the name will just show up to be Paris. So that's chapter 2, guys. This is just object-oriented programming basics as a review from Beginner's Java. This is pretty essential for both lower level and higher level programmers, and it will help you in the following sections.